This is a bit of entertainment. If you enjoy this production, please like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. Kindly watch the video to the end. Thanks for the view and enjoy the video. If you want to hear more of this storylines, please tell us in the comments. Deep in Louisiana lies Transylvania Parish, shrouded in mist and mystery. Ancient cypress trees draped in Spanish moss stand sentinel over the murky swamps. The locals speak of dark secrets and chilling tales passed down through generations. The swamp holds a darkness that few can comprehend. During World War I, a secret camp was established in Transylvania Parish. Locals whispered of strange activities, unnatural experiments, and horrifying screams. The camp's true purpose was a testament to the darkest depths of human depravity. The camp was a place of nightmares, enclosed by barbed wire and rotting buildings. Horrors beyond comprehension were perpetrated, driven by a twisted ideology. The swamp itself seemed to recoil from the darkness within. Hidden beneath the camp lay a secret laboratory where Dr. Klaus Werner sought immortality. Werner believed the swamp's decay held the key to eternal life. His experiments led to a breakthrough, but the elixir held a curse, not a promise. The first subject injected with Werner's elixir became a monstrous creature. Panic erupted as the undead soldier attacked, spreading chaos and death. The swamp became home to a new breed of monster, the swamp zombie. The legend of the swamp zombies grew, a chilling reminder of the horrors unleashed. The swamp became a hunting ground for the undead, their insatiable hunger shattering the ecosystem. Locals were unprepared for the horrors that now stalked their lands. Transylvania Parish, once a place of beauty, had become a nightmare. Amidst the horror, whispers of hope emerged. A recluse named Wendy, the White Witch of the swamp. Wendy possessed a deep understanding of the natural world and ancient magic. Desperate townsfolk turned to Wendy as their last resort. Wendy agreed to help, explaining that a perilous ritual was needed to sever the connection of the swamp zombies. Under the full moon, Wendy led a group deep into the swamp to perform the ritual. In a place of power, Wendy would attempt to undo the evil unleashed. As a chorus of croaking frogs provided an eerie soundtrack, Wendy began the ritual. She moved with a grace that belied her age, her voice rising and falling in an unknown tongue. Strange symbols, drawn in the dirt with a mixture of swamp mud and powdered bone, glowed with an unnatural light. The air crackled with energy, the scent of wildflowers replaced by the metallic tang of ozone. Jebediah and his companions watched from the edge of the clearing, their hearts pounding in their chests. They had placed their trust in this woman, this stranger who claimed to hold the fate of their community in her hands. As the ritual reached its climax, a cold wind swept through the clearing, whipping Wendy's white hair around her face. The silver amulet she wore around her neck, a simple teardrop design etched with ancient runes, began to glow with an eerie light. With a final heart-wrenching cry, Wendy plunged her hands into the glowing symbols at her feet. A shock wave of energy erupted from the clearing, throwing Jebediah and the others to the ground. The air crackled and popped, filled with the stench of sulfur and decay. Then, as suddenly as it began, the storm subsided. Silence descended upon the clearing, broken only by the sound of their ragged breathing. When they dared to open their eyes, blinking away the after images of the blinding light, they saw Wendy standing within the circle, her body trembling with exertion. The amulet around her neck, now dim but still warm to the touch, pulsed faintly. The air felt lighter, cleansed. The oppressive presence that had haunted the swamp had lifted. Wendy had succeeded, but at a cost. A hush fell over the clearing, the only sound the ragged breaths of Wendy and the small group of men who had placed their faith in her. The air, moments ago thick with the stench of sulphur and decay, now carried the sweet scent of honeysuckle, a fragile promise of renewal. But the victory felt hollow. Wendy stood, her slender frame trembling, her face ashen beneath the silver cascade of her hair. Jebediah, his weathered face etched with concern, rushed to her side, his calloused hand hovering hesitantly over her arm. Jebediah. "Wendy, are you all right?" She offered a wan smile, her hand fluttering to the amulet that now lay cold against her chest, a tangible reminder of the price she had paid for their salvation. "Wendy, the White Witch, the danger has passed. The souls of the restless dead are at peace." But even as she spoke, a flicker of pain crossed her features and she swayed precariously. Jebediah caught her before she could fall, easing her gently to the damp earth. He could feel the heat radiating from her, a burning fever that spread through her frail body. "Jebediah, what is it, Wendy? What's wrong?" She opened her eyes, their usual vibrancy dimmed with exhaustion, and looked at him, her gaze filled with a chilling certainty. Wendy the White Witch. The darkness, it didn't vanish. I couldn't destroy it. I had to bind it, trap it. Her fingers tightened around his, her grip surprisingly strong despite her weakened state. Wendy the White Witch. The amulet. It holds the darkness now. As long as it remains secure, the swamp is safe. But if it were to fall into the wrong hands... Wendy, her strength nearly spent, could speak no more. Her eyes fluttered closed, her breathing shallow and erratic. The weight of her words settled over the clearing like a shroud. Jebediah gently laid her head upon his satchel, eyes fixed on the silver amulet. He felt a faint heat emanating from it, a subtle pulsating energy. She had trapped it within the amulet, a prison of silver and ancient runes containing a powerful force. "Jebediah will get you home, Wendy," he murmured, more to himself than to the unconscious woman. They had witnessed true magic, seen the depths of darkness. They would protect her secret, safeguard the amulet. Carefully lifting Wendy, Jebediah led the way, back through the swamp. The air felt lighter, cleansed. They had stared into the abyss and emerged, shaken but unbroken. What if the darkness found a way to escape its prison? Wendy's recovery was slow. Days turned into weeks as she lay in her secluded cabin, tended to by Jebediah and a handful of trusted women from the nearby town. They administered poultices of herbs and whispered prayers for healing, their faces etched with worry. The amulet, now a constant presence against her skin, felt like a burning brand, a tangible reminder of the darkness she carried within her. She knew that as long as she lived, the darkness would be contained. But what would happen when she was gone? One cool evening, Wendy called for Jebediah. He had become her confidant. "Wendy the White Witch. Jebediah, there's something I need to tell you." He leaned closer, his gaze never leaving her face. Jebediah listened, his heart pounding in his chest, as Wendy laid out her plan. It was a desperate gamble, a pact forged with ancient magic and fraught with unforeseen consequences. But as he looked into Wendy's tired eyes, saw the weight of responsibility she carried, he knew there was no other choice. Wendy, as Wendy the White Witch. There is a ritual, an old magic rarely spoken of that can bind a soul to an object. It's forbidden, dangerous, but it might be our only chance. If it works, if the ritual is successful, the amulet will be bound to your lineage, Jebediah. Your descendants will inherit its power and the responsibility for containing the darkness within. Jebediah swallowed hard, his mouth dry. He was a simple man, a trapper who lived off the land. The thought of his bloodline being entangled with ancient magic, of his children and grandchildren carrying this burden, filled him with a sense of unease. But he had seen the horrors the swamp zombies inflicted, had witnessed Wendy's sacrifice. He wouldn't let her down. He wouldn't let the darkness win. Jebediah, tell me what to do. Wendy nodded, a glimmer of gratitude in her eyes. Wendy as Wendy the White Witch. The ritual must be performed under the next full moon. We'll need certain herbs, things found only in the deepest parts of the swamp. And Jebediah, it will require a sacrifice, a piece of your life force to bind the magic. Jebediah didn't hesitate. He knew the risks, knew the price he might have to pay. But some things, he realized, were more important than one man's life. The fate of the swamp, the safety of his people, rested on his shoulders. He would bear the burden no matter the cost. The days leading up to the full moon were a blur of activity. Guided by Wendy's whispered instructions, Jebediah ventured deep into the swamp, his heart heavy with a sense of foreboding. The air grew thick and oppressive the further he travelled, the silence broken only by the rustle of unseen creatures and the mournful croaks of bullfrogs. He collected the necessary ingredients, a sprig of bloodroot blooming beneath a rotting log, a feather from a black vulture circling overhead, a shard of obsidian blacker than the moonless night. Each item seemed to pulse with a latent power, a tangible connection to the unseen forces that governed the bayou. As the full moon rose, casting an eerie silver light over the swamp, Jebediah returned to Wendy's cabin. The air crackled with anticipation, a palpable tension that sent shivers down his spine. Wendy, her face pale but her eyes bright with a determined fire, awaited him. The ritual awaited. And yet, as Jebediah stepped across the threshold, a chilling thought wormed its way into his mind. Wendy had spoken of Lilith, of her desire to claim the amulet's power. But what if she already knew of their plan? What if she lay in wait, hidden somewhere in the shadows, ready to seize the amulet at the moment of its greatest vulnerability? The thought sent a wave of cold dread washing over him. He was walking into a trap, he realized. A trap laid not just for him, but for the very soul of the swamp itself. The darkness was closing in, and this time it felt personal. The fate of Transylvania Parish hung by the thinnest of threads, a fragile cord woven from hope, sacrifice, and ancient magic. The echoes of the ritual still reverberated through the swamp, its true cost yet to be tallied. Jebediah, bound to the amulet, looked out over the murky bayou. The threat of the swamp zombies had receded, their hunger momentarily quelled, but Jebediah knew this was no permanent victory. The darkness, like the mist, was always present, waiting to seep back in. He could feel it now, a prickling sensation on the back of his neck, and he knew with chilling certainty that it wasn't just the undead horde. Lilith, the dark mirror to Wendy's light, was out there, somewhere in the swamp. Her hunger for the amulet's power was a growing storm. The fight was far from over. It had only just begun.